Hello friends, Claych back with another video today, and before we get started on this one, let me thank you all for the feedback and the thoughts on the beginner's guide I made for Anji. People seemed really positive about it and had a lot of compliments, so I appreciate that. Probably shouldn't expect many of those type of edited and scripted guides out of me in the future, just because that took a long time. It was probably 35-40 hours of work to get that 20-minute guide out, and as much as I'm happy with how it turned out, and I'm glad people are getting use out of it, it didn't exactly do amazing. And as much as I would love to have every video be that well curated and really put that much effort into every single thing I put out, I don't have the time. I don't have an editor. I can't really pay an editor because I'm doing this, to try and supplement other parts of my content creation income. And as much as I would like to, I can't spend 40 hours recording, editing, and chopping up a video that might make me $4 or $5 in ad revenue. And that's not that's not livable wage. So, not to say I won't ever do it again for special topics or things that I really want to put the extra mile in. I will try and do it, but it's just hard to justify sinking 40 hours of my week into something like that when I can literally do a video on the patch notes off the cuff and get 7 times the views. You know what I mean? So, but seriously, thank you for the feedback. I'm glad people enjoyed the guide. And like I said, it not a guarantee I won't do it again, just don't expect it very often because it is a ton of effort for someone with no editor like me. So, but let's get into a topic I've been thinking about even while I was writing that guide, as I've been playing a lot more Strive, testing out things, getting a better feel for Anji in this season, and also I've been playing a lot of other characters just at very beginner level, trying to find a side character or perhaps a different main for the future with Strive. And it's done a lot to help me look at Anji in a different light other than guy who plays Anji and no one else. And it's highlighted a lot of things that have got me thinking, and I've kind of come to a conclusion, which is where the title and the thumbnail of this video is going to come into play, which is that I think that overall, I think Spin is actually holding Anji back. And before you kind of throw your hands up and go, Claych, haven't you spent the entirety of Season 3 telling us how incredible Spin is and how good Midare is and all that good stuff? And it's like, yes, I have been doing that. And my opinion does not change. That move's great. Midare is very, 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 very good. Leo, I'm going to have you not counterattack every time we do stuff here because that's not going to help my cause. This is still very good. This move got better. Anji got better. I still think Anji is better than he was. But when I say that I think Spin is holding Anji back in the entirety the whole spectrum of Guilty Gear Strive, I'm talking specifically about how Spin and the way it works and its mechanics are holding him back in terms of the design space. And how I think that, for better or for worse, I think the dev team and the balance team have kind of put Anji into a box, and I don't think they're going to let him out. And that has caused for concern, in my opinion. So let me explain what I'm meaning by all this, right? So, like I said, I still think this is a drastically improved tool in Anji's kit. Midare is without a doubt a very powerful new move that has enabled new things like the car cancel. It's enabled more consistent knockdowns. It's enabled more ways to make Autoguard not feel miserable to use, especially against people with meter. Because now, anytime someone PRCs, they're not going to PRC and stand in front of you. Even if you get someone to PRC Midare and do the backdash, you don't have to do Midare, right? Like, you can bait that out now. People are always going to PRC drift backwards, and if they do that and we do nothing, we're not getting punished. Like, you're not getting punished for auto-guarding something like that. So it feels way less bad than people who just got to PRC right in our face and interrupt whatever plans we had. So that is all an improvement. It is a marked improvement. I still think Midare is an incredibly good move. It is very, very strong. And it's helped out quite a few different things that Anji kind of struggled with in terms of using auto guard before. But having played more this season, and having tried other characters, there's been a couple things that have really stood out for me. One is that outside of this, playing neutral as Anji still feels kind of bad. His neutral tools still feel very subpar relative to the rest of the cast. Especially now that we don't have things like Charge Fujin starting big bombos, big starters anymore, and we don't have counter hits on stuff like sneaking a Renin and taking a risk with that anymore. You have to use meter to do that, right? And so what I've been finding out is that playing neutral, unless this is being effective, unless we're getting people to either overextend into running up and throwing or getting people to actually swing into the auto guard, playing neutral has not felt great. Even in matchups where Anji's not like horribly outranged and neutral isn't a massive chore, it's felt a lot more difficult. The other thing I have really noticed is that it's harder and harder as people have learned more about how offense is structured in Guilty Gear Strive. It is so much harder to maintain offense in this game. Every player I play now, even like the most mediocre Celestial player, someone who probably still plays mostly at a casual level, they know as soon as Anji gets on top of them to immediately start FDing me out. And just FDing the strings immediately. Because it's so much harder for him to deal with, because his offense just isn't that good overall. His ability to maintain and keep pressure and perform mix-up without resorting to resources is still subpar. Like, especially now that we don't have counter hits on stuff like this. I still think in the grand scheme of the whole cast, not just taking Anji in the vacuum, but the whole cast, I don't think losing these counter hits was the end of the world, but I do think it has made people less afraid of just not trying to swing into stuff and just letting Fujin and letting strings resolve. Because there isn't the threat of getting a big counter hit and dying now if you miss a block on Arene, or there isn't the big threat of getting counter hit by Nagiha and dying because you swung into a delayed Nagiha, stuff like that. You can still get punished, you can still have it hurt if Anji spins meter, but that's meter, that's a resource, it's finite. And so what I've been finding is that in matchups and playing against players where I can make this work, where I can constantly get out and do Midare, or hit the Kara cancel, or make people afraid of auto guard, it feels okay. Anji feels pretty competent. You can win a lot of games, you can dictate the pace of play, and you can put just enough fear into your offense that people respect it enough for you to run some type of game. But people who know how to kind of wait it out, or are more willing to not overextend, man, even just doing something like this, getting something as simple as like close S into a tick throw, it feels like pulling teeth. Because people just know to up back against Anji in a lot of situations because it shuts down so much of his basic pressure. You know, yes, you can run up and do close S again, and it's worked. That's definitely been my most effective offensive pressure option. But this just doesn't feel scary. This isn't all that threatening when you compare the offensive characters who really put the fear of God into you once they gain an advantage. And there's a lot of them in this game. There's a lot of characters that either do things in neutral that make you afraid to make a mistake, or once they get on top of you, you have stuff like this where Leo's in back turn, and this is a dominant strategy. It's an interactable strategy. There's counterplay to all this, but this is real. This is a threat. It's a thing he has a lot of access to, and he can do a lot of things into it, and he can make it all plus. And that's a big threat. It also loops into itself if he successfully hits you, right? So, the sheer just mediocreness, in my opinion, of Anji's up-close offense and his overall neutral game whenever this isn't the effective tool to play neutral with, just feels lacking. It still feels subpar. And I think that's a problem because there's very few characters that feel completely subpar right now. Most characters at least have something that you don't really want to block against them, right? Or you don't want to be put in the situation where the strength of their game plan gets to shine. Even characters who got nerfed, like let's take Zato, for example, right? if Zato knocks you down or gets you in a situation where you have to deal with him and Eddie at the same time, that is still very difficult to handle in Guilty Gear Strive. That is still a very oppressive form of offense to play. It's just now if you actually kill little Eddie, he has a punishment factor and he has to sit there and hold it for a while. But the actual offensive game plan, once he gains advantage, is still very strong. And the other thing I've noticed, aside from Anji's overall offense and threat level and everything outside of Spin feeling subpar, is that I've played with the characters who also have auto guard or parry mechanics. One of them being Leo, right? And so let's compare these various auto guard and parry mechanics when compared to Spin with Anji, right? So Leo's is locked behind two of his normals. It's locked behind either his slash or his heavy slash. And this button, his far S is kind of whatever. This is not, nobody really talks about Leo and goes, man, that far S is a problem. This button, on the other hand, stand heavy, this is not just one of the most important and best buttons Leo has. This is one of the best pokes in Guilty Gear Strive. Like, full stop. This button is incredible for so many reasons. Not the least of which that it lets Leo do exactly what he wants to do on offense, which is possibly counter hit you and start back turn stuff by getting in, or just hit confirming and doing a bunch of damage and getting a knockdown. So this is a thing he wants to use. He wants to use this button because it's great. This is a brawlic poke. It is really strong. And all he has to do to access auto guard on top of it is throw this button out and hold it, right? And then as soon as anyone gets in range, you can activate an auto guard poke by hitting the opposite button, either hitting slash while holding heavy or hitting heavy while holding slash. Obviously, this auto guard is not on the same level as Anji's. For one, this auto guard loses to lows. Any low poke in this stance or during this activation, Leo loses. He doesn't get to auto guard that. It loses to throws the same way our auto guard does. But Leo gets really big rewards off this and doesn't need meter for it. He doesn't have to do something that is horrible risk reward for him to get to this, because as I said, stand heavy, this is a button Leo players want to hit. This is a good button. They are not sad about throwing this out regularly in the neutral game. That is risk reward heavily skewed in Leo's favor. He wants to do this. That is a good part of his game plan. And more importantly, this auto guard, this is icing on the cake. This is a powerful tool that is very low risk because this has no recovery. It is zero. It is very hard to punish Leo, daring you to come in and just hitting you with this auto guard if you swing into it. And even if you block it, you're not hurting him for it. You don't get to punish him, right? You have to hit him low or just be out of range of it. So it's a high reward, but extremely low risk form of auto guard that has a blatant counterplay in that it loses to lows. I think that's fair design. I think that's good. It is a strong tool. It is not a tool that Leo has to use to play his game. Leo has plenty of other things to work with. His projectiles, you know, his run-in move, his potential cross-up if he catches you asleep at the wheel, and just his general suite of good pokes that can be buffered with his dash to get pressure going. Leo gets on top of you, his pressure game is real. Leo has pressure. You are not happy about blocking Leo. That's not a fun time, right? So he's not reliant on this, but it supplements his base game plan really well, and it has excellent reward for very minimal risk, right? So let's compare that again directly with Spin. Spin, as we've talked about, has much better reward now. Midare gives a hard knockdown in Oki. That's great. The Kara cancel can give very big damage if we have 50% meter to spend and cash out something large. That's great. But it's still attached to this. It's still attached to Spin, and this is still very high risk. If you guess wrong with Spin, the startup is in counter hit state, the recovery is in counter hit state. It also loses to throws automatically. The difference is this catches lows. You don't have to care if it's a high, low, or mid. This catches all of it. It also catches projectiles. We don't care about any of that. All of that is fair game, right? But the risk reward on this doesn't feel good. Anji's, at least in my opinion, maybe you all feel differently for you other Anji mains that watch my channel. I'm not throwing out spin in the neutral game, particularly because it's what I want to do to play neutral. I throw this out regularly in neutral because it feels like you have to. If you are not utilizing this as part of your neutral game, as part of your attempt to get in, whether it's doing spin by itself, or charging Fujin, or charging Ko, it doesn't feel like you're using the tools that you have. You kind of have to use this. This is almost a requirement to play neutral with Anji in almost any matchup, because these buttons on their own are not gonna get it done. The best, like, risk-reward poke Anji has in the neutral game is probably Sweep, because the counter hit reward is gigantic. But this is not a move you want to whiff. This isn't a move you can just toss out all the time and hope you get hooked up on it, because there are plenty of ways you won't. And there are plenty of ways for it to get punished, right? So, you're kind of boxed in. You are kind of told, if you want to play neutral with Anji, at some point, this is going to have to be incorporated. Even if it's just flashing it with the least amount of input possible to convince your opponent that, man, I got to run up and throw this guy. He's just going to keep auto-guarding. So, we're married to this. Like, that is just fact. Anji is married to this even more than he was in prior seasons, because Midare is arguably the most powerful tool he has right now. So, we compare that to, like I said, Leo. Much more complementary form of auto guard, and it's attached to something Leo wants to do anyway, and it's extremely low risk to use it in the entire process. Whether it's poking with this amazing button, or just going into the stance and using the auto guard, this is all very low risk. Very, very minimal. Very few bad things are going to happen to Leo for trying this. Throwing this out, very few bad things are going to happen to Leo for trying this. If you call out someone with a long auto guard and they just sit there and wait for the recovery to start, you're getting counter hit. You're getting counter hit, it's going to hurt, you're probably in deep trouble, right? Let's do another quick look at another character who has a parry/auto guard situation with Baiken. So Baiken is like the polar opposite of Anji's auto guard. Her parry mechanic is much harder to use. Super short window, but it's frame 1. It's just like Cacho Fuget's. You get it on frame 1. The window is not nearly as huge as Cacho Fuget's, obviously, but this doesn't cost meter. So this is a much higher skill check to use Baiken's parry properly. And this kind of works like Anji's. This will beat mids and highs and lows. It does not care what type of move it is, but it will not stop projectiles, and it loses to throws. And if it's baited, it's a pretty easy punish for people who are paying attention. This is not something you can just throw out over and over again and get away with it, right? But, again, unlike Anji, where it feels like if we're not doing this, we're not doing the core part of our kit, not using the best tool in our box, this is something that Baiken gets to do in complement to the rest of her game plan. This is a character without a lot of defensive options, having an excellent defensive option. If you can make good reads, if you can use it properly, you can punish people for doing blatantly obvious strings. You can punish people for meeting you on wake up. But the thing is this isn't Baiken's whole game plan. Baiken doesn't rely on this to win games by itself. It can bail her out of really ugly defensive situations and turn the match on its head. But Baiken has plenty of other tools to play with. She has Yozansen. She has the tether and all the mix-ups that come with it. You know, like, there's a lot going for this character outside of, I have a parry, or I have an auto guard. She has a lot of very useful tools. She has some very good buttons. Her far S is one of the best far S's in the game, even though the reward off it isn't amazing, just because this is an incredible poke, right? So, again, we have a mechanic, an auto guard / parry mechanic, that feels like it's in a much better design space, right? Like, this is a higher skill, more difficult to use form of an auto guard / parry that has good reward, but not amazing reward without meter. But it's frame 1, and it's very powerful. But it doesn't catch everything. It only catches melee. It only catches strikes. It loses to projectiles. Doesn't matter. It can be the worst projectile in the game. This ain't stopping it, right? So there's clear and blatant counterplay to it that makes it feel like, okay, there's a design space here. There's a cause and effect with how this move is supposed to work and how it supplements the rest of your game plan. But Anji, as we've shown, This really is the game plan. This is so much of what is making or breaking the character right now that you cannot play Anji without using this tool. There is no matchup that you can go into and go, I'm never going to spin. That's not going to work. It's just not. Like, your buttons are not good enough to go face other characters in Guilty Gear Strive and think that you're going to be able to successfully take rounds consistently without putting this as part of the equation, without making your opponent think about it, right? And again, this isn't me saying AutoGuard is bad. I still think that this got vastly improved because of the existence of Midare. It's a very, very annoying tool for the opponent to deal with. They really have to commit to beating this because, again, this is a catch-all. Mid, high, low, projectile, super, doesn't matter. All of it is on the table. We hit that 10th frame and we're in AutoGuard status, it'll activate it. It will tink right through it, and you can go into the Midare follow-up if you want. There is nothing that stops this except throw. That is it. That is the only option. So, Anji basically trades having a much higher risk style AutoGuard for it being the easiest to use. This is far and away. This is really, really easy to utilize, right? You input the command and you hold it down and you wait and see if they swing into it. You charge Fujin and you see if they swing into it. You charge Ko and you see if they swing into it. Leo's is also mostly fairly easy to use because it's just hit a normal and hold the button and then wait and hit a different button. Not super difficult to use, but again, it's not a catch-all. It doesn't beat Lowe's. Lowe's just laugh at it and go under it. Leo gets knocked down and then he has to feel bad. Ours doesn't care. Ours will stop your low happily and keep on trucking. So, my point behind this whole little rant I'm going on here is that I think the designers and the balance team look at this and look at this tool that's so easy to implement in terms of, oh, you hit a button? Well, I can just laugh at it. And now I can laugh at it by going into something like this, where I AutoGuard your normal, and now I knock you down, I get butterfly. Super easy to implement. It is not challenging to implement that into your gameplay. Very straightforward, right? Ever since this character has been introduced, it has felt like that every other aspect of Anji's kit has been consistently left subpar because they don't want to give a character who has this I catch everything but throws move a strong game plan around it. Because they're afraid that either one, he's going to become really overpowered, or two, it's going to be very unfun to play against. There has been a proven movement with modern fighting game development where devs will go out of their way to make character types that they feel are frustrating, especially to newer players. They try to keep them reined in. A perfect example is modern grapplers. Like, they rarely let grapplers in modern fighting games cook, right? Because people hate getting command grabbed for a ton of damage or having a small gap in their pressure and getting command grabbed for a ton of damage. That is something that makes people upset. This is kind of in that same vein, right? People get really annoyed when AutoGuard is good because they feel like it's a mindless activity that makes them completely alter their entire game plan and turn off all of their good pokes because it's so easy to just spin at it, right? And in fairness, this move will obliterate new players. Players who are newer or haven't had a lot of knowledge checks or who are learning the game or haven't played Guilty Gear much, they're free to this. Like, spin will absolutely dominate people who are still novices at the game. And even people who've reached that kind of mid-range might be, creeping up on getting into Celestial rank and hitting that first little tier of competitive Guilty Gear. This will blow them up too. Like, I'm sure you've all experienced this. This at lower levels in the tower might as well be an invulnerable super you do for free whenever you want, right? And I think Anji is in this same conundrum. I think he's in this same area with modern grapplers and stuff where the devs are just like, we can't give this character too much. People will hate this character. People will hate fighting this. They will complain and bitch and moan. Which is real funny because fighting game players are going to complain and bitch and moan no matter what you do. You could hand them a plate with $100,000 bills on it, and somehow they will tell you how they are mad about certain design aspect of that plate. So, you know, I don't think it's a good design philosophy, but it is a design philosophy that has clearly been implemented for a good while now. We've seen this even all the way back to Xrd. Xrd is, you know, almost 10 years old now. They kneecapped Potemkin immediately out the gate. They're like, nope, we're not doing this. We're not going to make the grappler do the thing. There were far worse frustrating things to fight in Xrd, just like there are in every fighting game. Strive is another one. Letting this character cook and be really, really, really strong, be a potential top-tier character, that would be ultra frustrating. But a character that basically doesn't have to aim at you with their bullets that go full screen and guard break you and can keep you out ad nauseum, that's not frustrating. That's fine. We'll let that rock. We'll let that rock for multiple seasons, actually. Spoilers, by the way, Happy Chaos is still probably a top 3 character. He just has to hit you more now. Just got to throw that out there. But I think that this is truly holding Anji back. I think the design of this move was done in an attempt to bring over a legacy mechanic. They know that Autoguard was a huge part of Anji's original game. The Autoguard and guard point on his normals in the XX series was what made Anji unique. It was the most defining part of his kit along with Fujin. They brought Fujin over. It wasn't very good at the start. It's still got a lot of problems, and I still don't think it's great within the design aspect of Strive, but it's usable now. You can make Fujin work. It's not oppressive. It's not on the level of some of the stronger offensive options in the game, but Fujin is workable. You can make this work. It's the same way with this. You can make Spin work. You can definitely use this mechanic and use it against good players to great effect. But the problem is, as soon as you find that player that is 100% committed to waiting you out or just knows how to not swing their face into Autoguard, then you have to start doing stuff like this and using FAR S and 2S and your 6P, which is very good but has massive recovery and massive windup. You know, this is not an easy move to just throw out to beat people with. You have to play neutral with this character, and he doesn't do anything in Guilty Gear Strive that makes people go, oh, I'm scared of this neutral. This neutral is actually a real pain in the ass for me to deal with. This is it. This is the part of Anji's neutral that people go, yeah, that's the thing I got to worry about. That's the one hiccup to my game plan. But the counterplay is there. And I think that it has really driven Anji into a box within the design space of Guilty Gear Strive that I have a real concern that they're just going to keep leaving this be his all-in button. They are going to base this entire character on Spin. Maybe they even buff it a little bit more in the future and make Spin better or take away some of the counter hit frames, or I don't know. They haven't done that yet. Midare is the first true buff that Spin has gotten, period. You could argue that getting, like, the launcher off stand heavy made more routes for getting counter hits out of charge Fujin, stuff like that. You could argue that those are kind of sort of indirect buffs to Spin, but the frame data itself on this move has basically been unchanged since day one. It's just that Midare is so good that now this is infinitely better as a direct result. But I'm just not very optimistic about this character ever being more than a minor nuisance and a mostly mediocre character in every aspect of the game other than I can threaten with Autoguard. I just don't think this offensive game plan stands out in any way, shape, or form in this game. You have to catch people completely asleep to reset them with something like Butterfly or to reset them with something like Spin. And once you overcommit and go into something like Fujin, your options are out. Everybody knows at this point what happens once Fujin comes out. There's 4 follow-ups or do nothing. That's it. And most of those follow-ups are still not that difficult to react to. Once he gets meter, okay, then we're talking. Stuff like this gets on the table. He also has better ways to extend pressure now because Wild Assault exists. This helps. This is very good. Combining Wild Assault with positive bonus with Roman Cancel, you can do some seriously long pressure strings with Anji. But so can every other character in the game that doesn't have White Wild Assault, which is all of 4 of them. So, while Wild Assault is also one of the better things this character got, almost every character got the exact same option that this Wild Assault gives Anji. And White Wild Assault, for the characters that got it, is very good at supplementing their personal game plans for what they want to do. So this isn't anything unique to him. This isn't something that defines Anji or makes his kit more impressive. It's just something that shores up a weakness he had, which is it's hard for this character to stay on top of you. It is legitimately difficult against good players to maintain offense for a long period of time. It is very easy to be pushed out or to have something go against you in terms of counterplay. You know, like, we want to do fan needles. This is +7. It's one of the few plus frame options we have. We all know that fan needles has very easy counterplay. It's called jump. Get in the air. Congrats, you beat fan needles. So, I want to be more optimistic, but I am legitly concerned. This is not me saying Anji's not good this patch. I still don't know. I have no idea. It's still too early. We're seeing characters that are clearly strong. And I think it's a lot of the characters that were already strong, and we knew they were good. And I think Anji overall is better just because Midare is such a good move. But here's the thing. You can only do Midare one way. And it involves doing this first. Which goes right back to this problem I'm talking about where I think in the design space, this holds Anji back. I think it is literally going to keep him from ever getting buffs that truly solve some of his biggest issues and let him do some of the more oppressive and strong things that you see in Guilty Gear Strive in terms of navigating neutral and putting pressure on your opponent on the offensive. When it's your turn to play offense, it's really hard to do anything that stands out and makes people go, yeah, man, Anji puts the fear of God in me when I have to block. That's not fun. Nobody likes blocking, but people are not sweating bullets like they are if Nago has a bunch of blood meter to work with and makes you block something. They're not sweating bullets like if Johnny has made you block close slash and a card is anywhere in your vicinity. He's just not that kind of character up close. He is just, I kind of do everything kind of sort of okay, and then I have this one trump card. And in Guilty Gear Strive, at least, that has pretty consistently been a recipe for being a not super impressive character relative to the cast. So, I've just been thinking on this a lot. I'm curious to know what you all are thinking, how you felt as you played Anji. Are you finding it much easier to play offense? Are you finding everything drastically improved? I know there are other good players who have felt not great about Anji in this patch, despite the power of Midare. I know Jiro, for example, is honestly very not happy with where Anji has ended up. He feels like he's harder to play than ever, because the threat of Reen and such without those counter hits makes the risk-reward of his up-close gambles with Fujin and Kara cancels not feel rewarding anymore. It just doesn't feel like you're getting a payout to justify the risk. So I'm very curious to know where other people stand. I want your honest thoughts on this, but we'll see what happens. I don't see there being a giant bounty of hidden tech for Anji outside of what we've already discovered with Midare and the Kara cancels that are going to suddenly rocket his game plan up the charts and make him feel like he can truly be one of the strong, oppressive characters in this cast. Maybe I'm wrong. There's still plenty to discover in Season 3. It is still very new. We are far from having this thing figured out, and lots could still change. But the more I have played with other characters and seen how they structure their offense, how they structure their neutral, and the more I have played Anji against stronger competition, the more I feel like that this has truly boxed us in. And I don't think that's a good thing in the long run. But let me know what you think. Give me your input. I honestly want to know if people just think I'm talking out my ass on this one, if I'm overreacting and it's just that I have not played the game for 2 years and I'm getting a rude welcome trying to remember how to actually play competent offense in this game. But I definitely feel this way when I watch even other strong Anjis play. They have a hard time maintaining offense. It's not just me. I will say that. I'm not the only one that struggles with that. So I don't think this is just Claude, you're bad. because I am. Like, let's be real. I'm not good at Guilty Gear Strive right now. You could argue I was never actually good at Guilty Gear Strive, and you probably wouldn't be wrong. But that's why I do videos teaching people about things instead of playing in tournaments. Funny how that works. Anyway, that's all I've got for now. I just wanted to get this one out there. I've been thinking about it for the past few days, and I wanted to record something, you know, in the old off-the-cuff way that I record. Some of you might call that lazy, and you would be correct. But let me know your thoughts. How is Season 3 Anji treating you? Are you finding it easier to find success? Are you finding the same problems you found in the past, just that Madare lets you get some more knockdowns and make Autoguard feel more threatening? Tell me what you're seeing. Tell me what you're feeling. I want to know. But that's pretty much all I got for now. As always, thanks for all the support. Definitely appreciate the likes, the subs, all that good stuff. If you want to stop by the Patreon, I have that link down in the description. That helps me out a lot. If that ever truly gets going, maybe I'll be able to make more of those scripted edited videos. I'm certainly not going to hold my breath. I don't expect people to be shelling out lots of patron money just because I talk about Guilty Gear Strive on YouTube. That's not, you know, it's not a unique skill. We'll put it that way. But I do appreciate all the support and feedback, as always. It definitely means a lot. So that's all I got for now. Let me know what you're thinking. And until then, be safe, be good to each other, and I'll catch you on the next one. So, peace.